And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. And Randy, I think I'm hitting the steakhouse after the show. Mr. Randy Wiggs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, Gavin Newsom is in Los Angeles today to sign new legislation that will change the Mental Health Services Act, and I'm sure people are wondering if Gavin is being mindful about the situation.
Again, I'm here mindful of this moment, sober.
Wait, I thought he didn't believe in sobriety.
Different kind of sober.
Again, I'm here mindful of this moment, sober.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay there. We're going to get to as many calls as possible this hour after our interview with the former sheriff. Speaking of which, let's welcome to the program the former sheriff of Los Angeles County and current candidate for LA County Board of Supervisors in District 4, Alex Villanueva. Sheriff Villanueva, welcome.
Oh, thank you, John. Good afternoon to you.
All right, let's start with this, because one of the issues that you put front and center when you were sheriff of Los Angeles County was cleaning up the homeless encampments, whether it was in Venice, whether it was near Rivera Street, whatever the case may be. You came in with officers and said, all right, what you're doing is illegal, and it's time to enforce the law. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, ran on a platform of cleaning up homelessness too. And she just came out earlier today with an unbelievable whopper that I want to play for you because I can't believe these words came out of her mouth. She said, and we're going to play the clip so you know I'm not fibbing here. She said that homeless people who are addicted to drugs were not addicted to drugs before they became homeless. They became addicted to drugs after they became homeless as a coping mechanism of dealing with living on the streets. Let's listen.
We also know that it's a chicken and egg issue. There's some people that believe that the unhoused population all suffer from mental health and substance abuse issues, and we know that that's not true. We know in many cases it's a chicken or egg situation, and I would ask everybody here how they might deal with their mental health and substance abuse vulnerability if you were living in a tent for a month or a week.
Sheriff, your response.
Wow. Let's start with the obvious. About 70% of the homeless population suffers from both or either mental illness, substance abuse, or a combination of the both. And the homeless situation may exacerbate it, but these are things that happen before they're homeless, when they're homeless, and even they go back into a shelter and they're still abusing drugs. So that is kind of laughable, sadly. And you got about 30% of the homeless population that are actually there for economic reasons, loss of a job, bankruptcy, illness, domestic violence situation, all these other reasons. But the bulk of it, that 70%, persistent mental illness, substance abuse, and that's why they're homeless, not the other way around.
I think part of this, I think she knows better. And I think part of this is that she doesn't want to admit that she was wrong on Prop 47, which essentially decriminalized drug use. She doesn't want to admit that we were wrong to do things like shut down Men's Central Jail, where we have no place to put them if we do arrest them. They're just doubling and tripling down on policies that do not work.
Oh, Prop 47 is a classic example. Prior to Prop 47, you could arrest someone for possession of narcotics, make it a felony. They went to jail. They got they got cleaned immediately, forcefully, and then they went to court and they were trying to avoid that felony conviction, so they'd agree to go to a halfway house, to a treatment facility. And there was many of them, and they were turning a profit. They always had competition about bed space, and they were always 100% occupied. Now, a bunch of them went out of business for lack of customers because everyone says, I don't need to do that because there's no stick over my head. I'm just being fed a steady diet of carrots.
Yeah, and I don't know. We were just talking about this last hour. For a lot of people who are addicts who kick the habit, how they do it is they kick the habit by hitting rock bottom. If you eliminate jail from the equation, I don't know how they hit rock bottom until they die.
That's exactly what happens. We're losing about 5 to 6 a day on the streets of L.A. due to primarily substance abuse or a medical condition that is not being treated that is curable or fixable. And when they hit that rock bottom, like I said, they just keep feeding that supply until they die. And then the coroner comes, scoops them up, and we start a new day with a new set of body counts. And that is the failures of Prop 47 and the far left Sacramento, the legislators and the governor that signed it into law back then. They're just looking the other way and pretending that, we have nothing to do with that. No, they have everything to do with that. It's a failed policy, and they cannot admit failure.
You know, a lot of the local politicians here, either in the city of L.A. or the county of L.A., have been getting in trouble, whether it be for doing things they shouldn't be doing with the University of Southern California, their Department of Social Work to be specific, or developers. There seems to be a pattern of politicians allocating money for organizations that then funnel it back to them. Are we seeing that same thing take place with these organizations that exist to serve the homeless, where the money just gets funneled back to the politicians and they have no incentive of fixing the problem? They need to keep it going as long as possible so they continue to be funded.
That's exactly what's happening. The homeless industrial complex, we traced back roughly $3 million worth of campaign contributions that lined the pockets of the Board of Supervisors in particular, that came from all of that massive amount of 501c3s, the nonprofit world, the board of directors, the CEOs, people making six-figure salaries off the back of the homeless. And there's no financial incentive to end this cash cow. So they're going to keep finding ways to add more budget, add more personnel as the homeless count keeps growing and growing. And it's insanity, but they keep saying, hey, it's housing first, so let's keep doing what we're doing. And they're never going to find a solution.
Well, by saying it's housing first and then by funneling money to the homeless organizations, they're getting it both sides. They're getting the money coming back to them from the developers, and they're having the money come back to them from the homeless organizations. It's a win-win for them. It's just that the rest of us have to live in misery because of it.
Oh, exactly. And that misery is going to continue. Right now, we're the nation's capital of homelessness. We have a perfect weather. We have a very permissive environment where you can do whatever you want, and repercussions are minimal criminally because of George Gascon and the likes of Prop 47. And then you have the Board of Supervisors, City Hall, just throwing money at everything possible that has to do with the homeless, to the point now, even on the trains, hey, let's make a homeless shelter on tracks, and enjoy that view as you're a passenger on a train.
You mentioned George Gascon. Recently, of course, the big news worldwide is the attack that took place on the state of Israel from Hamas, where terrorist attacks killed, I think it's now north of 1,200 people. Domestically here, after those attacks, the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, has held rallies all over these United States in support of Hamas, in support of the terrorist acts. We have a number of politicians who are members of the DSA or supported by the DSA here in Los Angeles, including 3 members of the LA City Council and former Councilman Mike Bonin, who represented Venice. The DSA has been huge supporters of the District Attorney, George Gascon. If you're a member of that organization or you enjoy support from that organization, should that disqualify you from public office in light of what that organization has done?
I would say definitely so. And look no further than Melina Abdullah, head of the Black Lives Matter grassroots, the statement she put out, a 2-part statement that I think is straight up hate speech. And someone needs to start asking some questions on what she's doing because, Lord, they took the information from DSA and they converted even a worse statement in support of terrorists and basically trying to rationalize slaughtering men, women, and children in the name of fighting oppression. And I'm sorry, I'm just not buying that at all. And I know there's a conflict that's going on for a long time, but I stand firmly in support of a two-state solution and the rule of law, which means combatants fight combatants. You don't fight soft targets and civilians. That is just terrorism, and it needs to be denounced in every which way it rears its ugly head.
You know, it's funny. If you take the logic of the DSA on what happened over in the Middle East, where the terrorists are the good guys and the victims are the bad guys, and you apply that logic, given the fact that so many of our local electeds and the daughter of the owner of the Los Angeles Times, Nika Soon-Chong, she has been very close to that organization as well. And the LA Times has all but taken Hamas's side in that terrorist act over in the Middle East. But you take that same logic where the bad guys are actually the good guys and the good guys are the bad guys, and you apply it to what's going on in California, it makes a lot of sense as to how they come to the conclusions that they come to. Where if you're dealing fentanyl, you're not the bad guy, you're the good guy. If you're a prisoner in Men's Central Jail, you're not a bad guy, you're a good guy. They've totally flipped the script on everything, and they've turned the world upside down.
Yes. In fact, they use the language that they're being criminalized. We're criminalizing people because of the color of the skin, and law enforcement are the oppressors. And I can't think of nothing more oppressive than seeing a smash-and-grab robbery or a lady being dragged across a parking lot by her purse strap as she's being mugged. That looks like oppression to me. And but these people, they double down on some really, really horrific thought processes, and somehow they think it's cute or it's a Vogue thing to do with the younger generation, and it's horrible.
You mentioned the smash and grabs and retail theft that's been plaguing not just Los Angeles, but the entire state of California, particularly our big cities. Because of it, the state has issued grant money that's available for local governments to apply for and use to fight retail theft. Many jurisdictions up and down the state applied for and were given that money, and they're using it to try to prevent retail theft. Two jurisdictions jump out in particular who chose not to apply for this money. One was the city of Oakland. They claim that they just forgot to fill out the paperwork in time, and it was just one big misunderstanding. However, there are other people in Oakland who dispute that and say, no, they didn't want the money. In Los Angeles, the district attorney, George Gascon, refused to apply for the money because he said he doesn't want it. What do you make of that, given what we have to deal with on a daily basis with the smash and grabs and the retail theft?
Well, since he took office, he's pretty much wiped out the entire misdemeanor section of the penal code. He just doesn't enforce any of the misdemeanor laws. And he was also a co-author of Prop 47. So what used to be a felony burglary, it became a misdemeanor. Petty theft with a prior, that became a misdemeanor instead of a felony like it used to be. And these were tools that were very successful at preventing retail theft and keeping people honest and keeping stores open for business and employing people, you know, kind of like Econ 101 type stuff, but not for good old George. He thought he was smarter than everyone, and he was going to rewrite the law to his liking and then not enforce it. Even not enforcing the lower standards of Prop 47 gives us the situation we have today. So he's represented a double whammy for the entire state of California and now for LA County, and previously look at his performance in San Francisco. He left it a hulking, a smoldering mess, and he comes down to LA, and I guess the voters got amnesia from what happened up there.
Do you worry as to what he's going to do with that office if he's booted from office in the primary and he has 8 months as a lame duck to inflict as much damage on the people of LA as possible?
Oh, he will definitely harm it further than he's already harmed it. I mean, he's lost more than 20% now of his workforce is just left in disgust. He's now got 33 lawsuits against him by his own employees for retaliation. And the Board of Supervisors, they're just silent as this whole wreckage is going on. But if you recall, when I was in office, every time I turned my head, it was, oh, my God, this, oh, my God, that. And they had this keen interest. Yet we were doing exactly what we were supposed to be doing, which is enforce the rule of law keep people safe in the jails, keep people safe on the streets, and, address the big crisis of the day, the pandemic, civil unrest, things like that. And it's this selective decision to interfere with elected department heads is kind of curious.
If you're elected to the LA County Board of Supervisors, would you vote to fire Barbara Ferrer?
Yes. I think her time has come and gone. I think in fact, I know personally her unwillingness to work in a collaborative environment with law enforcement jeopardized early on a lot of the issues with the health orders and shutting down businesses and their whole idea about essential and non-essential businesses. There was no input from anyone outside the little bubble they created for themselves, and that harmed an awful lot of people. In fact, people I don't think have recovered financially from the disaster that she represented, and the board failed to intervene.
Wait, so when she was running around with the power to shut people down if she wanted to shut them down, she never communicated or collaborated or asked you what you thought about it, given the fact that it would be your job to enforce her edicts. She never talked to you about any of that?
Never. She told me once in one conversation only while I was still the director of emergency management. She said, "I don't work for you. I work for Catherine Barger." That was the end of the conversation. And from then on, she thought, I guess, she was kind of like George Gascon, Moses coming down from the mountains with the tablets, and this is, thou shalt follow these orders. And the world doesn't work that way. There has to be some common sense in there. There has to be some viability in what you're doing, and you got to think long term. Now people are so fed up with restrictions that if we actually, heaven forbid, had a real virus that's a life-threatening thing that we need to impose restrictions, now we're going to have a bunch of resistance that we created artificially because we went overboard during the pandemic.
Wow. So she really is that power hungry to talk like a mobster in private.
Pretty much. I'm always in for collaboration. In fact, at the start of the pandemic, when we knew that we were in big trouble, because remember, we're sitting on the nation's largest jail system, congregate living facility, and what do? So I picked up the phone. I called the presiding judge of the Superior Court and said, "Hey, Your Honor, I think we got an emergency situation here. We need to think and come together with a solution that we can lower the population to defend it and keep the worst of the worst still incarcerated and protect the public." And we put together the Superior Court judge, the criminal court's presiding judge, the district attorney, the public defender, alternate public defender, obviously law enforcement, the chiefs of police. We made a huge collaborative effort, and it worked. That's how you're supposed to approach these things. But from then, they thought, it's a public health issue. We don't need to talk to law enforcement anymore. We're out of here.
As someone who served in a county-wide position as sheriff of Los Angeles County, I would imagine that given everything that you know and having worked with these people for as long as you've worked with and seeing the dark side and seeing all of these public officials, so many of them go down in corruption scandals and other negative associations, that you ending up on the Board of Supervisors would be their worst nightmare?
I think it would, and not because I'm going to do anything wrong. It's actually quite the opposite. I'm going to introduce honesty, integrity, and transparency into the operations of the board. So the public is not blindsided, taxpayers are not fleeced, and we have a perspective that doesn't exist on the board right now because there is a profound lack of diversity on that Board of Supervisors. And I think, they would dread the day, and not that I'm going to do anything bad, quite the contrary. I'm going to get them to start doing things that actually benefits the public's interest.
Sheriff Alex Villanueva, candidate for the LA County Board of Supervisors, running in District 4. That is a new district. They were redistricted recently. That's the district that Janice Hahn currently represents. If people want to find your campaign online, how can they do that?
They can go to alex4supervisor.com, the number 4. And on social media, you can follow me on Alex4Supervisor.
Sheriff Alex Villanueva, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to listen to a podcast version of this show, that just got easier to do.
That's right. Just download the KABC app, search in the Apple or Android app stores for KABC AM. You have an easy way to listen live whenever you're outside the AM signal. The stream works great. It's less cluttered than any of the other apps out there. And you can listen to all the podcasts of the show on CarPlay or right there on the app. In fact, if you listen to this show from noon to 3, and then at 3:01 you turn on the podcast for some of the hours you missed during the week, it's like
I receive things on both ends.
Pretty much. All right, we're going to go back to the phones at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, get ready because we're coming to you next. We're taking your calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, because the mayor of Los Angeles said that homeless people weren't on drugs before they became homeless. They became addicted to drugs after they became homeless.
We also know that it's a chicken and egg issue. There's some people that believe that the unhoused population all suffer from mental health and substance abuse issues, and we know that that's not true. We know in many cases it's a chicken or egg situation, and I would ask everybody here how they might deal with their mental health and substance abuse vulnerability if you were living in a tent for a month or a week.
All right, let's go back to the phones at 800-222-KABC and begin with Courtney. Courtney in Orange, you're on KABC. Hello.
Courtney.
Are you there?
Are you on mute, Courtney?
Going once, going twice. No Courtney. Let's go to Marco in Whittier. Marco, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Johnny and Randy Wang. After an hour and a half of waiting, I was about to hang up, and I thought, no, I love these guys so much. I might as well be homeless now. I probably lost my job already. I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to join the gypsies, those families the guy was talking about. They're all gypsies. I'm Hispanic, so I'm going to blend right in, and I get my benefits. Yeah, I got a rhyme for Karen Bass. When I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling blue, it's because you came out of a stinky chicken's butt and you're telling me what to do. That lady is crazy. I don't know anybody that's able to work sober and got their mind right that is homeless. When I was a kid, I worked a full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, and went to college at night. And I always feared poverty. That kept me away from being homeless. And I know many friends like that have done that. So now she can kiss my butt. And thank you. I love you guys. Bye.
Well, thank you so much for keeping it clean. What do you think if she did that rhyme, Randy?
I think it would be better than the rhyme that we all know.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, let's get help for you.
Let's go to Mike in L.A. Mike, you're on KABC. Hello.
Yes, I'd like to say something regarding the man that was having a problem with the homeless person parking in front of his house for 4 years. From the way he described where he lives in a nice neighborhood, obviously this is what he said, my suggestion would be, depending on how the signs read, the parking signs in the neighborhood, what I would do is this. I would go out and invest in a decent, respectable used car, put it right in front of my house and just leave it there. Or either, if I'm sure he probably has a car himself, rotate the cars from one, buy a used car, put one in his driveway, put one on the street, back and forth. Eventually the guy will he won't be able to park there.
And if you need more space, just buy an RV.
There you go. That's what I would do. And that would deter him, I would think.
How about that Oscar Mayer Weenie Mobile? That'll take up a lot of space.
Yeah, but I know.
Might send the wrong message to the neighbors, but could do the trick.
Yeah, you never know, because, that could be a little bit aggravating, having someone for 4 years parked in front of your house like that. There's not much you can do about it. And defecating on the lawn or whatever, that's not very nice.
No, the only perk is he has award-winning roses.
No, but no, I just wanted to bring that up, though. That's what I would do. I would just buy like an inexpensive car and just park it in front of my house and just leave it.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your wisdom. Let's go to Ronald in Reseda. Ronald, you're on KABC. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
Good.
So I was just trying to talk about the chicken and the egg. I think it's definitely the chicken. I'm a healthcare worker. It's definitely hard to follow up these other people. But, yeah, in my jurisdiction, definitely we see a lot of these people that are definitely the chicken before the egg.
Here's how I imagine it goes. You develop an addiction and you put yourself in a place where your friends and your family don't want you around. And when you can't keep a job because your addiction is overwhelming your ability to perform, and your friends and family don't want you to live around them, that's how you end up on the streets. And when you end up on the streets, maybe your drug addiction gets worse, but it wasn't as if you developed the drug addiction on the streets. You had that long before.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely working in different facilities, I see. I don't think people quite realize what's going on in healthcare facilities to combat this homelessness, but it's a lot of narcotics pushed on these people in those facilities themselves. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Mike in North Hollywood. Mike, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Oh, hey, good afternoon, John. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, I just have a sort of a different perspective on the Karen Bass statement. The chicken and the egg thing to me resonates in that she's got to have a scrambled brain just like a meth addict. Not to be cursed, but just as a background on me, I'm 55 years old. I used to live in Vancouver, BC, and I've seen drug addiction there and safe injection sites and all that stuff, and it's not worked. The areas are just worse. And I'm 105 days sober. I went to a 30-day rehab center, and every night in LA there's like 200 meetings one can go to, and it's a rule of attraction as opposed to a rule of advertisement. And you have to want it. And being in these rehab centers, most of the people that were in there were young, from out of state, and they wanted it, and they stayed clean from very adverse conditions. So I just don't believe that it's a mental issue. It starts with addiction, which leads to mental, disorders through dopamine and all those sort of things. And just ruining and rewiring your brain is what it's all about to get better. So I just wanted to point out those factors in terms of like how rehab really works. And you have to want it. And if we don't have the proper authorities to give these people the choices that are necessary as opposed to just giving them money every month, then you're right. There's no rock bottom to be had, because you really have to hit a rock bottom, as I did, before you can turn your life around. So I don't think we have a system set up to enable that. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, thank you so much for your call, and congratulations on your sobriety. It's a great thing, and I hope you live a very long and healthy life, and I appreciate your perspective. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Bill in San Pedro. Bill, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, John, how are you? Great interview with Villanueva. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to be voting for him because Janice is a buffoon.
Wait, she's going to give you a warning for that.
That's your final warning.
Oh, perfect. So on this chicken and egg thing, this is all a problem with the administration in Los Angeles, and I'm going to give you a couple examples. This morning they announced they were going to pump another $52 million into the homeless industrial complex for about 708 rooms. That comes out to $73 $72,000 and $72,000 a unit, basically. And if you can't do a hotel room for less than $73,000, they don't know what they're doing. This is the case of people whose money is not theirs are running an administration that doesn't know what they're doing. The Mayfair Hotel that the city is just now buying after it was housed the homeless, it had $11.5 million in damage in 300 rooms. So now the city is going to buy the hotel after they've given
how much
the owners,
damage?
It was $11.5 million in damage.
I don't think
rooms.
Metallica could do that much damage to a hotel.
No, that's $38,000 a room. So what they did, the city is going to now buy the hotel after the homeless were in there, and after they've given the owners $11.5 million, but the owners didn't have to fix the damage. They're buying the hotel as is. So we got to fix the damage again after we've paid for it. It's just moronic. It drives me crazy.
Well, this is a lot like what happened during COVID. They had a state of emergency, so they fast-tracked all of the money, and they didn't dot their I's and cross their T's. They just passed the money around to people who were around them. And the people who are around them are typically the people who make money off of them, and they make money off of the people around them. It's mutual. And it was just an opportunity for it to be Christmas all the time.
That's right. It's six-figure incomes for the people that run these homeless foundations. It's new white vans to drive people around, new computers, pension credits for the people that in the city that have been spread around to these homeless administrating agencies. I mean, it's just, anyway, it drives me I told the screener it drives me crazy. So it's just, and down here in San Pedro, we've got it fairly good. They clean it's just a game of whack-a-mole. They clear out the camps over there by the post office, and then they move 2 blocks away, and then as soon as the trash trucks and the police are gone, they just move back in.
Well, thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Ken in Studio City. Ken, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hi, John. Thanks for taking my call. This issue hits home for me because I've had 2 friends who have become homeless and couch surfed, and it's a real scary thing because once a person is not functional, not able to get an apartment, they have nowhere to go. My 2 friends had no family, and one friend is now in assisted living. He got really lucky because of his health issues, it's the silver lining. The other friend is living in a tent on a private property now, and I was worried both times that I wouldn't be able to get them to leave. Now, Karen Bass is just another one of a different face of all of the usual pathetic progressives, and some cliches are good and some are mindless. The chicken and the egg is a stupid cliche, and anybody who has to use a cliche as a crutch is not very smart. The place that the area that I disagree with you is that people here, especially in an expensive place to live, fall through the cracks. The cracks are very big to fall through, like my 2 friends who had no family and not enough income. And a lot of people around me, most of the people I know, most of the people I think in the state, or at least they smoke weed. And once you become homeless, I think it's a gateway to worse drugs to self-medicate. Even our governor admits that he self-medicates. And once you're on the street, if you smoke weed, you're going to end up most likely a really, really bad drug addict over time. And so I think you're being a little simplistic with saying that they are all really bad drug addicts to start with. I agree with you that that is the problem, and most are, but a lot who fall through the cracks are just maybe drinkers or pot smokers, potheads, and then it cascades from there.
All right. Well, thank you for the call, sir. And if they're just drinkers or pot smokers, I'm sure they're enjoying the bump music today.
It is Steely Dan Day.
All right. We've got one more hour coming up. If you're on hold and you want to say your piece, stay there. We'll go back to the phones at 2:30. We're going to give you an update at the top on what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now with the battle to pick the next Speaker of the House. But we will go back to the phones at 2:35. So if you're on hold, go ahead and stay there if you want to go on the air and say what you need to say. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. We have one more hour coming up right here on The John Phillips Show. Talk Radio 790 KABC.